Stacey, welcome to the Power Within You podcast. It's really lovely to have you here with me today. We've met once before, just for the listeners' background, and I basically loved you as soon as I spoke to you. Although it wasn't even about this topic, it was about other stuff that we've been doing in terms of work. But it's so wonderful to have you on the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing today, and I'm so excited to be talking to you. And the feeling is mutual.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And what happened was, I think I started talking to you about the podcast that I was doing. And then, you mentioned that your son, your lovely son, is on the Asperger's spectrum, basically, or
Mhm,
ASD
mhm,
spectrum.
mhm.
I know there's different sort of terms for it as well. And then I was actually about to record the podcast and I asked you to kind of come on it because I really think it's amazing to speak to parents about their own experiences, because I know that, so many parents are going through similar situations with their own
Mhm.
children, and there's more information and knowledge available. But I was hearing in the UK that, there's probably next year there'll be 190,000 children waiting on the list to kind of get seen, to get
Wow.
diagnosed or assessed. So it's a lot, and it's overwhelming as well. So I'd love to kind of, listen to your journey and kind of speak about that. So I'll let you
Yeah.
kick off and you tell me where to begin and like how it all
Okay.
came
Well,
about.
that's an incredible statistic that you share.
Yeah.
And, I'm talking to you from the United States.
Mhm.
So our healthcare system is, a mess. We don't have a national healthcare system, whatever. And so most of what we do here, is really on a private pay perspective. And for me, my experience, and this could differ for other people or it could be very similar, but we had to private pay to have our son assessed, if you will. It was
Sure.
really expensive. Not a ton of people do it in our area. There was a wait list for us of 6 months, and we were private paying really expensive rate for him to be assessed. And the interesting piece of this is, as you said, you really hit something that's so true for parents. It can be an overwhelming experience. And I'll just share kind of a humorous story, I guess. I originally was having my son assessed because I thought he was going to kind of come out on the gifted IQ
Mm.
perspective, because we were looking at where we were going to place him for school. And so I went into this thinking, oh, he's going to come out and as a gifted, IQ, whatever, and we'll get a placement for school, whatever. And so after 8 hours of testing, or whatever it happened to be, the neuropsychologist or psychiatrist actually said, "Oh, he has Asperger's and he's on the spectrum." And what? And I was like, "Huh? What? Yeah, I didn't come in for that.
Exactly.
Sorry, I thought I was coming in for this." And she was like, "Well, yes, yes, and that like yes, and
Mm.
this." And I was like, "Oh," and that was a whole different set of learnings that
Mm.
then I went down and said, "Okay, well, I don't really know about this. I don't even understand what it is. I don't know anything about it. What are the services that I need? And so one question informed the other and informed the other, but it was pretty overwhelming to get that diagnosis when I was just really didn't expect it.
That's
But
amazing,
it's
isn't
been
it?
awesome. Like unlocking the intricacies of his personality through the lens of this diagnosis has been a game changer
Mm.
for me, for him. It really helps him identify that he is unique, he is incredible, he is unbelievably special, and there's reasons why his brain works in a different way from others. And so it's almost like when you name something, it doesn't have to define you, but it can give you some perspective as to how your behaviors relate to others. And so it's
Absolutely.
been a game changer. It was a shock, but we're rolling with it. And just to give some context, if you have listeners that are in that like overwhelm research phase, I had my son diagnosed when he was 6,
Mhm.
and he is now 9.5. So it's been a little bit of a journey, and today it's so interesting. I'll just brag a little bit. I just came from his school where he just received an award for being on the honor roll.
Oh,
So
amazing.
that's been
Congratulations.
yes, really, really, really cool. So he's had a journey, we've had a journey. Um, but it's been a journey of like acceptance, research, knowledge, and just saying, okay, here's how we're gonna learn about ourselves.
And I think that's incredible, like to be able to embrace it as well. I'm sure it was scary to begin with because you don't know what that means. But were there any kind of because he's 6 years old when he got diagnosed, and you were kind of going for the sort of gifted child, right? Which people on the spectrum have, though they are gifted.
Mhm.
So were there any particular traits that you noticed when he was younger that kind of
Yeah.
led you to this?
Yes, yes. There was something that I thought was so unique. He doesn't remember this at all.
Mm.
But when he was 2 years old, he would go around parking lots and he would, by the symbols of the cars, he would know every single car by the symbol.
Wow.
Like he would just go
No.
through the parking lots and just say Ford, Honda, Mercedes.
2 years old.
2 years old. It
Oh
was
my goodness.
insane. And I remember, and I thought, wow, this kid's really smart. Like, but I didn't know about the fixation pieces, and I didn't know
Yeah.
about any. And so I remember like standing in the line of a Starbucks, and there was a gentleman in front of us, and he had his keys sort of in his jeans pocket, in his denim pocket, and he had some keys inside the pocket and some keys hanging outside of the pocket. And I was just talking with my son, and he turned to us and he said, "Wow." And he's little, he's like 2. He said, "He's really, really smart." And I was like, "He's pretty smart." I said, "He knows a lot about cars and this and that." He's like, "He does." He said, "Do you think he would know my key?" His key was hanging outside of his.
Mm.
And I said, "Probably, give it a shot." And Declan looked at it. That's my son. And he looked at it and he said, "Cadillac." And the guy just stood in line, and I remember the barista was like, "Sir, sir, sir," and he was like stupefied. So there was
Mm.
that one thing, but like he used to line toys up. He liked things in a line. He liked structure. There were in hindsight, things that maybe wouldn't fall in the quote unquote normal child behaviors. So there were indications. I thought, again, I thought they were just super cool things that made them super cool, which they are, but I just
Yeah,
didn't have the name for it or the definition for it or the title for it.
that is incredible. I mean, that is very special, isn't it? And the thing is, like you know that when you have kids, they are special.
Mhm.
But that is really super special, I think. And so did he do that like as you were seeing grow into 6 years old? Did you see
Mhm.
more of that happening as well as he kind of like did he start to
Yes.
have like different fixations and that sort of stuff?
That's the thing. So we get hyper focused on something. So it would be hyper focused on Sesame Street characters, hyper focused on Pokemon. Oh my gosh, we were hyper focused on Pokemon cards. So hyper focused. Now we're hyper focused on Harry Potter. So, and so we learn everything about it. But then we leave it and we move on to something else. So it's really interesting. I think one of the opportunities is to figure out ways to use that sort of hyper focused diligence for like good, like how can we use this
Absolutely.
for reports in school? How can we use this for things that, kind of move you forward in life? Because I think when you're interested in something, you learn more about it. It becomes, something that you want to share with other people. One of his challenges, I'll be very frank, one of his challenges really is that he is interested in things that other kids really aren't necessarily interested in. And that makes friendships and relationships at school a little bit dicey. So that we're working through that now as a 9-year-old.
Oh, that's tough, and that sort of social. network, and that, feeling safe around that is really important for kids as well, isn't it, as well? And
Mhm.
so Declan, does he go to a school which is just a general school which is is not just for neurodiversity but for everyone basically, and so it's trying to fit into the norms of that, I
Yeah,
suppose.
that's a
Yeah.
great question. He is actually not in a larger public school. He's actually
Right.
in a small religious school. So it's very nice for him because he's in the fourth grade. There are three different fourth grade classes. And so when he'll move to fifth grade, it'll be three different fifth grade classes, but they're primarily be the same students. So even though he might not be with that same group of kids that he has this year, he knows them. So it's small in a sense that now, and we've been there for a long time. We've been there for like
Mm.
7, 8 years. So now all the kids who have been there, obviously you get kids come and go, but the bulk of the kids know him. And so now he's got a safety where if he does something that's a little bit, off the beaten path, so to speak, they'll say, "Oh, that's Declan." So they give
Right.
him a little bit of grace where I don't know if he was in a really large, public school or whatever. I don't know that he would get that grace. But he's also a really fun kid and he's hard not to like he's just like we just had Halloween last night. We're
Oh,
recording this. We
yeah.
just had Halloween last night. And whereas other kids were choosing to be Pokemon or, characters from Minecraft or Fortnite, all these other things, like Declan chose to be the Pope.
Let me see a picture. That sounds amazing.
Phenomenal. His costume was phenomenal. Shout out to Amazon where we found it. It was unbelievable. So, it's just those things that make him super cool. And as we're walking around the neighborhood, like kids and adults were like, that's the greatest costume, dude. Like, so, you just
It's that
it's
uniqueness that makes
yeah,
that person special, isn't it? That kid.
yeah.
And I think it's really interesting because they call it a spectrum, and but it must be so difficult to know where on the spectrum a kid lies, right? Because obviously as they get older it might change, into adulthood and that sort of stuff as
Yes.
well. Like what kind of resources or support did you seek after the diagnosis to kind of cope better?
Great question. We were immediately, so I'm a pretty type A personality. So when I got the diagnosis and when I was like, "Oh, okay." Then I went into hyper vigilance mode. Like, I'm going to research everything. I'm going to find out who can help us. So so maybe he gets it from being on the spectrum. Maybe he gets it from being my son. I don't know, but I kicked it into gear also. And so, um, we set him up with ABA, behavioral therapy, so that we can work on social skills. We can work on reciprocal communication,
Amazing.
noticing, when things are happening in social situations with other children. What are those cues? How do you pick up on those cues? So he's actually been in behavioral therapy with kids his age. And he's been doing that since he was 6. So he's been with that. And that's been remarkable. The growth we've seen, the ability to like I said, ask reciprocal questions. It used to be, we would say, "Hey, how was your day?" And he'd be like, "Really good."
Full stop.
We're like, okay, well, in the real world, the next question is usually,
How's your day?
"How was your day?" So it's those things that are keys to unlocking, as you said, as you become older, as you become an adult. Those are keys to unlocking behaviors, communications, things that will allow you to succeed in the workplace and, things like that.
Absolutely. And I think also, like what I've kind of read about is that, people who or children who become adults who haven't been diagnosed or it's been missed mask. So they mask and they try and copy what other people are doing, but also that causes that anxiety, that depression, even like OCD and other issues. And I think often neurodiversity and neurodivergent traits are lumped together with mental health, but I think it's when that person or the child can't cope or hasn't got that right support that those sort of issues start coming. I think it's really beautiful that he's got a mother like you to like just get in there, man, and be that hypervigilant mum and like be able to support your child. Because also you as a coach, you're away, obviously your whole sort of life is around coaching people and that sort of stuff as well. And so it must be, how do you sort of intertwine that though with the work that you're doing and like how you're kind of being a parent as well to Declan?
So that's a fascinating question, because although, and I think we actually had this as one of our previous conversations, like, although I don't focus on neurodiversity executive coaching, I have a tremendous fascination with it, obviously, from a personal perspective. And I do a lot of coaching in software. I do a lot of coaching in engineering. I do a lot of coaching in some scientific fields with executives in those fields. And it is really interesting. I have never asked, nor would I ever ask unless the client divulges to me that they, have some diagnosis or even just affiliate with something. But I have had now enough experience in my limited experience to say to myself, oh, I wonder if, just from communication patterns, just from inability to see or even pick up on facial cues or expressions of people or body language or things like that. And I find it really fascinating. And I wonder, to your point of masking behaviors, when executives recount stories to me or different events that they've experienced, they want to unpack them. I will ask questions like, well, what did you see? What did you notice? What did you hear? And oftentimes they won't tell me things that, in my estimation, I was like, ooh, you've been in this business, you've been in this industry, that could have been something you could have picked up. And so with that masking, I think there is a lot of anxiety if that particular individual has been coping in different ways that they don't have, maybe they don't have the definition. Like we talk a lot about in coaching, we talk a lot about, symbolically labeling our emotions. Like, oh man, what am I feeling right now? Okay, hold on. I'm feeling frustration. Okay, why am I frustrated? I'm frustrated because I didn't get the answer I need. Like, so when you label something, you have the ability to feel it, name it, get a plan for it, and move yourself into action. When you don't, it's very untethering and you don't know what it is. And so you look for answers and you look for masking behaviors and that can be exhausting.
Yeah, I completely. And I think that you're so right. It's like, and also like what I think is interesting is that, people who are on the ASD spectrum could also be dyslexic or have dyspraxia or ADHD, and that's even more complex to deal with as well, isn't it? And I think more and more research, more and more information is coming out about that as well. And I think it's you have to be highly observant, I think, to kind of like really get that and really grasp that into like your coaching sessions, for example, or your workshops, whatever it is. Do you feel like you'd want to kind of specialize a bit more into that as you kind of go further in your career?
I would love to, honestly. I really would. And I've taken some workshops and some webinars and things like that, but it is really, it's becoming a focus and a niche, but it's not there yet. So I would love to have the time to carve that out because I find it fascinating. And even the conversations I have with my son, we'll talk about that and I'll say, oh, Declan, that's so interesting. I just had a very similar conversation with a client. And here's the and when I recount the conversation to him, his insight on it is unbelievable as well. And he's like, well, here's the deal. Here's the da 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 da. And I'm like, how did you get that? And he's like, well, because. and then he'll tell me why. And I'm like, whoa. So I think,
It's
I mean, he'll
amazing.
blow my own mind. Sometimes I write about him. Every Friday, I publish something called Thought Partner Friday, and it goes out to people on my email list. And I've written about him actually a couple times because he's helped me with some dilemmas that I've had just in clarifying my own thoughts.
It's
And he's
amazing.
helped me with some subject titles that I've written about. So it's fascinating. So I
I
would,
need
to
to I
answer
need
your
to talk
question,
Declan,
yes,
man. I need to talk to Declan when I'm designing my next workshop. I'm gonna give him a call to help me out.
you'd be on it. I tell you. Yeah.
He sounds amazing, and
Yeah.
it's incredible, isn't it? And we are one person, so that's why we naturally intertwine our personal
Mhm.
experiences with our professional ones as well. But I think it does, as a coach, it probably makes you so much more empathic
Mhm.
as well when you're dealing with these types of things as well. And I wanted to ask, actually, like having a child on the ASD spectrum, like what are some common kind of misconceptions or myths
Oh,
that
yeah.
people have that you can sort of dispel for us?
Yes. Well, I will give you one that was initial fear, but really didn't last very long. But I can see this being a challenge for some. The when we got the diagnosis for Declan, it was in May of 2020, so it was during COVID. I
Yeah.
know, during COVID. And he happened to be going back to school where a lot of kids were not going back to school in August of 2020. But he was going back to school because, his school was small. They were taking precautions. They were going to wear masks. Okay. So he was going to go back to school. The dilemma was, do we tell the school? Do we tell the school? And I really didn't have an issue with telling the school because I was a former teacher and 100 years ago, my first career after graduate school, and so I was a public high school teacher. So for me, my perspective was, heck yeah, we tell the school because they can help him, they can guide him, they can give him resources, they can understand his behaviors. Absolutely. The counterpart point to that was, no, we don't want to tell the school because we don't want him labeled. We don't want him, not pushed to his greater potential because, oh, he's on the spectrum, so that was a real dilemma. Do you quote unquote admit it to others so that, now they form their own opinion? Maybe they stereotype you. What does that mean? So I think that can be a real dilemma for people, now that they
Indeed.
have this information, what do they do with it? We did tell the school, and it was the greatest thing we could have done.
Do they have experience of dealing with children on the spectrum?
Well, that's the interesting piece because much like medical information that can't really be shared, neither can this. And so
It's
I was
interesting.
living on an island going, oh my gosh, he's going to be the only one. He's going to be the only one, blah, blah, blah. But we know this. Once we start sharing our stories, we realize we're not the only ones and we're not on an island. So when we told the school, although they were incredibly professional and they didn't say, oh, so and so, so and so, so and so, they were like, they were really like, this isn't our first rodeo. He's not our first child, and this is not a big deal.
Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
oh my gosh, that was again, something else that's incredible to hear.
Yeah, and they don't. I mean, do you know what? I think it was a big public school, it might be different as well because they
Mhm.
have so many
Right.
kids they need to look after. So actually, sounds like Declan was in the right place, in the right school for his needs to be met as
Yeah.
well.
We were super fortunate. Super
Oh,
fortunate.
it's amazing. It's amazing. And so like you talked about like a couple of interventions or therapies as well. And so like have you found any sort of particular strategies that have been particularly effective for Declan as well? Like, that importance of early intervention, like, because it sounds like you kind of got in there basically.
Yeah, yeah, we really did. Yeah, I think that because he has such a focus on things that are of interest whatever those happen to be, they fluctuate. But whatever it is, I would try, I'm not a big rewards person, like you do this and then you get this, because I don't know that life really follows that pattern as you become an adult
True,
necessarily.
true,
So I
that's
don't
true.
love the token system, and so I really haven't done that, but it has worked for other kids and other families and other parents. But I guess maybe my coaching has informed this too. We do a lot more with like feelings. So what are you feeling right now? And one of the tools that we were given actually from his behavioral therapist was kind of a chart, really. And it's like green zone, red zone, yellow zone. And it was like, where are you right now? Like, are you yellow zone? Like, uh, you know, teetering on,
Brilliant.
or where are you in the red zone? Are you? So again, by labeling it, saying, here's where I am, I need to either go into another room. I need to sit right here. You need to be with me, or you need to go in the other room. It was like, we're able to do that. So I didn't never really used a reward token kind of strategy, but we did do like some emotional diagnostics, I guess.
Mm.
And that's helped us. And that helped us when he was younger. We do that less now. We do that less because he's got a larger command of his emotions. He's a little bit older and he knows this behavior is not flying. So what are we going to do about it?
This is amazing, right? Because I feel like just even in sort of neurotypical circumstances, or a neurotypical child,
Mhm.
that child doesn't learn about their emotions, at school, maybe not at home either for the majority of people. And so that kind of technique, I think, would be useful for everyone,
It
as
is.
well, because we're just not taught how to regulate. We're not taught how to emotionally regulate as children, as adults as well. And I think there's so much more work to be done of people recognizing their own emotions, which is why all these issues occur of stress and disease and, sadness and depression and anxiety, as well. It's amazing that,
Yeah.
you're able to do that with Declan.
Yeah. It really is. And I'm just going to piggyback on that point. In doing some workshops with adults on emotional intelligence, I have now started to implement the wheel of emotions. And there, you can Google wheel of emotions, like there's 100 million of them online. But I've started to implement that. And I have to tell you, overwhelmingly, when I'll do post workshop evaluations or whatever, like, what was the most impactful piece of this? What are you taking away with you? People will say, oh, the wheel of emotions. Like, I'm going to use it. I'm going to put it on my desk. I'm going to give it to my team. I'm going to use it with my kids. And I would have given them a bulk of other content, but they still like that wheel of emotions because they're like, I never really knew. I would always just feel anger. I didn't know that there were 14 other words that actually peel back what that anger is. Is it disgust? Is it confusion? Is it disappointment? Is it, so yeah, your point is exactly well taken. And I'm using it. So it's it's
It's but
definitely.
it's no, but it's so true because this is how like it's like people just aren't in touch with their emotions, and like
Mhm.
I love that you're doing that, but it's like basic stuff that should be taught at school sometimes as well to children, of how to recognize that. I did a workshop recently to so here we call it they were not nice primary school teachers, so
Okay.
they like from they teach kids from like 5 to 11
Mhm,
basically.
mhm.
And I know the deputy head, so I went in and did a workshop. And she's like, do whatever you fancy. And I was like, okay. She already said that to me, to be fair.
I love
Because
it.
I also did it on like things like the inner critic and imposter syndrome. And for me,
Mm.
it's like, stuff that I think that people kind of know about and stuff. But I think everyone was like, whoa, they were quite taken aback by reflecting upon what goes on in their head and
Mhm.
their sort of emotions and stuff as well. And I was so surprised. I think because I deliver it, and I think because I talk about it so much, I still don't realize that other people like don't really connect to that.
No,
And I think
no.
that's
We don't have
when,
time
no,
in our daily lives. People don't have time. They are just done and to the next, done and to the next. And they don't have time to really pause and say, what is going on? And why am I reacting the way I'm reacting to what is going on?
absolutely, absolutely. It's This is why I love the work that you do, and you know how it should be out there to everyone, right? As well, because that it's so necessary. It's so necessary,
Mhm.
and also in those workshops that you're doing or coaching, there'll be neurodivergent people in there as well who
Oh, absolutely.
as well, so probably learning from it too, which I think is amazing.
Mhm. And I
Um,
use my son too as examples of things. Like
yes,
I don't use his name typically, but I will use conversations that we've had. And I would say, this is interesting. Let me share this with you. What's your perspective on that? This was his perspective. Granted, he's a 9-year-old, but and it's fascinating to see that because again, we're all the same, like you said, we're all one.
yeah,
And oftentimes we are adults that still have little people in our own bodies, right? So we're just bigger people, but that person still is in there.
absolutely, absolutely. I wanted to ask you about your expectations of what it would, before you became a mother and what
Mm.
it is now. Like, what's your journey as a mother?
God, what a
From what
joke.
you're expecting to what you're, doing, right? Because people
Right.
have general ideas of what it's like to be mother to a kid, right? As
Yeah,
well. Like,
yeah.
how have you, as Stacey, sort of come into this journey yourself, do you feel?
It's yeah, I had no idea what it was like. And I said, and that sounds so naive, but um again, just a little more info. I had him when I was 40. So I was like an older mom too. And so I just thought this is going to be great. What a great adventure. Stupid. What a great adventure. This is going to be so fun. And it is. It actually is. It is a great adventure, but it's really hard work. And I think it would be hard work neurodivergent or not. Like being a parent is the hardest job because you just want to do it right. And what does that even mean, right? Like what does that definition of doing it right even mean? Like
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows what it means? It means that they grow up and they're solid people and they're good humans and they contribute to the world and they make an impact for themselves and
Absolutely.
others, and that's it. That's it. That's it. I don't care about anything else.
It's like it's isn't it amazing? Like, but I think it it feels like that you are learning so much from Declan as
Mm,
well. Like
so much.
that deeper understanding as well, which I think is so beautiful as well to have that. And and I think it's a great example of being able to fully support your child. And I guess some people don't even know that they've got a divergent child or say neurodiversity as well. And so picking up at 6 years old, I think is amazing. I mean, what can you kind of like say to like people to how can like people, if people are kind of thinking about, oh, there's something special about my child, like what do you
Mhm.
think they should do? Is it going to like a sort of health service or doing some reading or like understanding what's going on with their
Yeah,
child?
I think so. I think if there's something, and that's a great question because I have asked myself that, like, wow, I wonder if there was I saw him diagnose or learning the logos of those cars, right? I saw him lining things up. I saw that he was really particular about things. So I asked myself that, like in hindsight, like, huh, I wonder if I should have picked up those cues myself and maybe Googled something. It's not like information isn't at our fingertips, right? So I'm
Yeah.
like, I wonder if I should have, could have, would have, whatever. Um, I think so. I
Mm.
think the answer is yeah, maybe I could have. And so to answer your question, we were fortunate because we could get him diagnosed. I know that that is not a reality for a lot of people. Even the statistics you shared at the very top, people, just waiting to be seen. But I don't think you can wait to be observant. So if you're observant, I think, yeah, it's kind of on us to just try to do a little reading or try to, you know, when we got the diagnosis, I immediately went on Amazon and just put it in, and there must have been hundreds of books, right? at all type of depth levels. There was a handbook that I bought that was 500 some odd pages long. Then there was a slim book, that also I picked up. So yeah, I think there's resources out there. And even if you don't know, you're not sure, it doesn't hurt to just read and say,
Absolutely. And it's about being curious, isn't it, as well, I
mhm.
think. And I think that sort of leads to sort of this question as well of, how can we all contribute to creating sort of a more inclusive and accepting society for individuals with, autism or who are on the Asperger's spectrum? Like, is there any ways, even as just humans, can we be more empathic, understanding? Like, what can we do generally, do you think?
Yeah, I think we really, and this just goes for the state of our world in general. I
Yeah,
think we have to continue to work hard on reframing that different isn't bad. It's just
right.
different.
Yeah,
I have curly hair. You have straight hair. It's different. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just different. And when we have a lens of that, we can look at people's behaviors or their responses or their quirks or the things that make them them and say, oh, that's different. It's different from me. Great. Move on.
let's embrace
Right?
it. Yeah, exactly.
That's it. That's what we can do. And we need to continue to do that reframe for ourselves instead of looking at it and go, wow, that's weird. Why is it
Yeah,
weird? It's different. So it
yeah.
comes down to, again, define how you define it, how you label it.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's embracing differences. And I think, unfortunately, how we have evolved as human beings is in very similar social constructs and ways. And this is normal, this is not normal, this is what is better, this is not what's better. And it's really created, well, as we can see, massive conflicts in the world as well. And I think, just to be accepting of each other, I think
Mhm,
is a beautiful thing, and hopefully we can spread that message and
mhm,
share that across.
mhm.
But it's just so wonderful to speak to you, Stacey, as well, about
Mm.
your journey, but also the amazing Declan's journey as well. I have to see that picture of the Pope.
I know. I'll send you a picture. It's tremendous. It's just
He
tremendous.
sounds like an
Again,
amazing,
Amazon
amazing
saves the
child.
day.
And I can't wait to hear about his journey as he gets older as well. But I think, I'd love it if people could contact you and kind of get to know you a bit better as well. So if they wanted to talk to you more about this subject or even about your coaching, how can they get
Yes.
in touch with you?
Yes, absolutely. I would love that as well. So they can go to my website, which is SBJ, as in Stacy Berg Jackson, SBJ Consulting Inc.com. That's my business, SBJ Consulting Inc. And I'm on LinkedIn under
Brilliant.
Stacy Berg Jackson, and that's a great way to find me also. And if you want to be sort of connected with me, I send out that newsletter, like I said, every Friday, and it's called Thought Partner Friday, and you can sign up for that too, right on the website.
I'm going to
So
sign up. I'm going to
easy.
sign up.
Yeah, I need to sign you up. That'll be my homework. Okay, so you finish this amazing podcast, and I will manually sign you up. Deal.
It
Deal.
sounds amazing, and because honestly, it's just the most wonderful thing sharing your thoughts, isn't it? And
Mhm.
just kind of going out there and stuff as well. But yes, the listeners, please do connect with Stacey. I think she is an incredible person, human being, coach, mother as
Mhm.
well. So Stacey, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the Power of Within You podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Likewise, thank you so much. It's been an
Thank you.
absolute pleasure.
Hey.